It's May 21st, 2021. We're at the US Classic, an Olympic qualifying event in scenic Indianapolis. Simone Biles is standing all the way at the end of the runway, about to perform a vault. Over her shoulder, there's a sign that says the numbers 460. That's actually 4.60, the difficulty score given to Biles for this move she's attempting. This vault, aside from being such a huge athletic feat, was a long time in the making. For Biles, this vault attempt, if successful, is just adding another notch to a ridiculous gymnastics resume, hitting its peak right here. So, what is a vault? Does gravity exist? Is Biles aware of that? Let's think on all of that and rewind. This video is presented by Amazon Prime. Shopping, streaming, savings. It's on Prime. Biles is about to attempt a move that even has these seasoned announcers excited.
How much have you guys thought about this the last couple of days?
I mean, since the very first moment that we actually saw this.
The Yurchenko Double Pike, the name of the vault Biles is about to try, has roots in the Yurchenko vault family. A Yurchenko vault was used for the first time back in 1982, and in '83, the vault's namesake, Natalia Yurchenko, performed it at the World Cup and won with it. Watch the height of this leap, which adds power for her round-off. This downward moment of her legs sends that power into the board, which turns into this momentum that allows for her rotations. That's what a perfect 10 requires. Vaults and gymnastics were invented back in the 1800s, being used for sport instead of being used for its far more serious original purpose. Vaults were also originally shaped like horses, so they just retained the name vault horse in ode to its OG resemblance. Anyway, vaulting began with humble jumps over the horse, so humble that simply leaping over the obstacle wasn't really enough to qualify as a vault. Then, more variations were eventually added, like the Yurchenko. This novel way of approaching the horse, doing a round-off or bouncing onto the springboard with your back facing the vault horse, gave way for more airtime. Instead of gymnasts being forced to take a, quote, balanced approach to their vaults, i.e. boring, lifeless, and basic jumps, the Yurchenko vault put more emphasis on a gymnast's ability to twist and turn in mid-air. So yeah, some very wild stuff to be doing, starting off with a backflip and somehow ending in the person landing on their feet, ideally. Yurchenko said in an interview that her coach had come into practice one day with the idea for the vault, which sounded pretty absurd originally. So absurd, in fact, that it wasn't allowed into international competition until 1982. Still, it made its impact and it was popularized amongst women's gymnastics competitors after its creation and display from Yurchenko. It makes sense that Biles is then trying a Yurchenko here. She's the best at what she does, and this is a best of the best vault. So of course, this variation is being scored so highly. But judges don't want gymnasts risking it all for higher scores. Gymnasts take a big risk when trying to perfect or just execute the Yurchenko. Several gymnasts have suffered injuries ranging from landing on their heads to injured vertebrae, and even one case where a 16-year-old gymnast fell into a coma after an attempt. This inherent danger is why, back in 2001, a big change was made to how vaults were approached. Gymnasts now had a table to land on instead of the vault horse, seen as the more slippery landing point for athletes going at full speed and looking for the best airtime. In addition to that change, the risk involved with these newer variations on vaults is why scoring committees adjust scoring to discourage gymnasts from trying more dangerous variations too often. In the case of Biles, these scores get adjusted a ton because of how good she is at executing dangerous moves. Scoring breakdowns are pretty straightforward. The difficulty score, or D score, is calculated out based on a few factors. That includes the point value for the most difficult parts of the routine, how well each skill in that routine was executed, and how the skills were composed for the routine. Execution score has to do with how well all the elements in a routine were executed. You guessed it, congratulations. Combining these two scores, judges can determine the total score for a gymnast on any given routine, whether that be for a vault or a balance beam or a floor routine, just to name a few. And getting a combined score of about 16 is the best day at work possible for a gymnast. For context, here's Simone about to earn a 15.066, finishing with the Biles, a dismount move named after her. Just so you can try and follow, she's now going to do a double twisting, double somersault. Watch the rotations. Insanely impressive, and right up there with the 16 score I mentioned would be a sweet spot to hit. But Biles was actually unhappy with this score. In fact, it was revealed that the judges on the difficulty panel, which yes, that is a real thing, they have a difficulty panel, for this competition felt that they had to lower it just a bit to discourage others from performing it. Despite it being, so good and so unbelievable that it was named after her, judges and the governing committee in charge of making these scores and codes did not want other athletes not as skilled as Biles attempting this routine all willy-nilly at world championships and qualifiers to increase their scores. She's being punished in a way for being so good at such dangerous moves, and Biles is not exactly a fan of their logic. That code cannot stop elite gymnasts like Biles though. Just ask Yurchenko herself. In this moment, as Biles is staring down the table and preparing to take flight despite all the risks, it's worth pausing and appreciating just how she's standing here in the first place. Biles entered the gymnastics world at age 6, having worked her way up from childhood into becoming one of the best gymnasts on the planet. Biles has had some moves named after her, 4 specifically, quite a lot. There's the Biles floor routine, done in 2013, then the Biles 2, added to rule books in 2019 after she did it at a world championship. There's the balance beam dismount move called Biles on the balance beam, and a Yurchenko vault she introduced back in 2018 at a world championship event. It's a typical Yurchenko start, but while she's in the air, she'll do a somersault plus 1.5 twists, then to make it all her own, she gets this absurd amount of height in order to be the first to finish the second twist and land facing this way. Oh, and would you look at how high the D score was set prior to this attempt, 6.40. Wild. She's also a rare case of a gymnast still going strong despite being a quote older participant. She's just 24 years old here, but for gymnastics, that's about prime age or about to be over the prime age for being able to compete and actually contend for a title in any competitions during the Olympics. She's coming into this competition decorated in both Olympic and World Championships to the tune of 37 medals. She's been a force in the gymnastics world, largely considered the GOAT of the sport, and she embraces that image. She hasn't really stopped to slow down that momentum at all, till she literally did have to stop. Biles has taken a break from competition before, most notably after the 2016 Rio Olympics. She needed rest and took it, which is pretty fair. She had been competing non-stop for so long. It's understandable that she had to take a breather and just have a year to do her. The GOAT was not gone for long though. She's landed right back into competition for this year's Olympics. But before that, she has to make a stop in Indianapolis for a quick qualifier. And she's here to debut not just a Yurchenko vault, but one never pulled by a woman in the sport before, the double pike. You know how we already explained the physics of a Yurchenko vault, so the backflip off the springboard, the whole thing about a gymnast's back facing the landing mat since they're hitting the vault table backwards. Now add in doing 2 flips while holding your legs for dear life in midair. That's a double pike. And that's what Biles is going for here. 2 backflips in the air while keeping her body tucked and then landing right on her feet. At least 5 men have tried the double pike prior to Biles. One of them, a British gymnast who pulled out a double pike during the 2012 Olympics, Christian Thomas, says that he feels the move is so uncanny that it stops some gymnasts from even trying it at all. Biles is back in action for this attempt for the first time in over a year. COVID-19 and pandemic-related shutdowns meant that everyone needed to take a breather from competition. But here she is, ready to defend her US Classic title from back in 2019. She's ready to attempt something no woman has ever tried in the sport. She's ready to debut a sensational Yurchenko variation. And she's ready to take a big risk to her score and her body in the process. Welcome to a moment in history.
It has been absolutely unbelievable to watch every single time. Here we go.
Wow.
And now, let's take a look at the score. Nice. Thanks so much for watching. The Olympics are actually going on right now, if you wanted to tap into some elite sporting stuff. And fun fact, Biles actually pulled this vault out during the all-around individual final to net a near 16 score. Average day for the GOAT. For more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to our Patreon. Shout out to our secret agents.